Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Wowhead chat. Today, we're going to be talking about healing in Season 3 based on the Raid and Mythic Plus testing so far, and some of the current class changes to healers. With me, we have two of our healer class writers. First up, we have Jack, or Automatic Jack,
Hey, how's it
and
going?
Theun.
Hey, how's it going?
All right.
That's my line.
So starting off, I just want to talk about general changes to healers. First off, we've seen a lot of mana adjustments. They want to kind of change some single target tuning, as well as making sure that healers have to deal with mana. Jack, what's your kind of overall thought so far on this?
It seems almost like they made a little bit more out of it than I was expecting because I was expecting to have like a lot of specific abilities getting nerfed when it came to their mana. But I feel like one of the biggest changes is them like nerfing Rashaks and not having that to be able to like rely upon anymore, and not having like a good successor to it. We have like the Amalgam Seventh Spine and a Black or Cold, but that was kind of hit or miss for specs when it came back in like Legion Time Walking. So I don't know if it's just going to be us dependent on that again, but I've been playing so far with every healer but Druid, and some of them I know like Shaman felt kind of rough on mana. If I cast even like a couple surges or something like that out of line and keys, it felt really bad. But for the other ones, like Monk felt fine. I think the priest specs didn't feel too bad either when it came to mana. It was not as impactful as I expected it to be.
Cool. Theun, what about you?
Yeah, I think there were a lot of times in season two where mana wasn't really a resource that even mattered because we had Rashaks. So, and that's like not super healthy for the game because then spell selection doesn't matter, and then like the whole role of healing feels kind of weird. So I'm glad that mana matters more. But like Jack said, there's a couple healers that might need some more fine tuning there. But like otherwise, I think across the board it feels pretty good from testing so far. So.
Yeah, I know you mentioned, season two, there's kind of a lack of stopping for mana in Mythic Plus, other than some very specific circumstances. Do you expect a lot more mana breaks in season three then, based on these changes?
Not really like mana breaks, but there's a number of like safe spot. There's not like snap tech, but it's like safe spot tech of like stand in this position so monsters don't jump on you in like Waycrest and Ataldazar. And so I expect it's going to be one of those things that for healers, if you can like stop, like sit for 3 seconds or something when a boss gets pulled, or you can stop as like the tank is going to grab trash mobs, you're going to be totally fine on mana. You're not going to be like gasping for air like we were in like BFA and just like begging for fish feast or something to like bring up our mana pools. Doesn't seem like that would happen.
Yeah. All
Yeah, I
right.
agree. There used to also be like tech where you would kind of go ahead of the group. That way you drink while the tank is
Yeah.
catching up. So, but we haven't had to do that for like a year now. So yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, we had the fish feast back in the day. Shout out fish feasts, and then we had affixes that gave you mana, and now that's all gone. So
Yep. It just can't give those healers mana. But that's
yeah,
the problem is if they went too serious with those mana changes, then the meta healer would just be whoever is the most mana efficient. Because
yeah,
you're never going to be in an environment for timed M plus runs where you're just sitting and waiting for your healer to drink. Just they won't do it.
it's also not fun for the 4 out of the 5 people. Actually, maybe even 5 out of 5
Yeah.
people.
Yeah,
correct. Yep.
exactly. We don't like to just sit there and drink.
All right, so next season we also have a larger item level increase. Plus 39 item levels. That's probably going to increase health pools by a lot as well. How do those health pools feel? Do you think Blizzard needs to do another health pool increase in season three so far? Dan, what do we
So we were
say?
looking at this. I don't know. Like these numbers obviously aren't like finalized yet. It is the PTR, but we had roughly 900,000 HP in 476 item level gear. I think is like what you can craft up to on the PTR right now. Um, with like fort buff and stuff. I think on live we have 600,000 HP or something. So it's like a 50% increase in health. And our main stat was only going up by like 20 to 25%. So that's not kind of keeping up. So that's something that I'm like keeping my eye on going into the next season is we're gaining a little bit more HP than we are main stat. So it's going to probably take us a little bit longer to top off health bars. So even though we've gotten some of these like spot heal buffs and stuff, maybe that needs a little bit more looking at, but we'll see. So
I think it's kind of two part in a lot of cases because they did multiple changes of increasing the mob's damage and increasing our health throughout the expansion. And now we're getting into getting less primary stat power. We're also hitting our secondary stat DRs really at this point as well. And then our eye level's going even past that 476. It's going to be at like 483 or 486 or something along those lines at max gearing.
Yep.
So if the trend continues, we're getting even more stamina on top of that. And healers getting a lot of their general kits sort of nerfed. A lot of really beneficial 2 and 4 sets from Aberis are not getting carried forward or rolled forward as well. So I think a lot of cases healers are kind of getting like slow nerfed, or kind of like they're almost like hidden nerfs that are sort of given to it in terms of how quickly you top off a health pool. Because when Thune and I had our articles and videos and everything, a healer being strong is about them topping a health pool quickly. But Blizzard's making content extremely difficult because the damage is all very bursty because they want to challenge us, and the only way to challenge the healer when they can top health pools quickly is to make it just burstier or more rot or heal absorbs, which this raid is just chocked full of.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. The last thing I want to touch on, you mentioned health pools. How do you feel about tank healing? Do you think like healers are going to struggle with tank healing, or are tanks just going to continue to be self-sufficient, and the best tank is just going to be self-sufficient, like Bear kind of was this season?
I kind of like it when tanks are very self-sufficient. I think Bear is a little too much, but like Brew, where you need to be like having your tank on life support all the time, is also too much in the other direction, right? I think there should be like some kind of happy medium where tanks can sort of like not feel as insanely tanky 24/7, and they will require some kind of off healing or externals. But generally, I mean, we've seen in the past where like if tanks don't have a lot of agency over their life, they just quit the game and there's nobody to play with.
Yeah, like I remember early Shadowlands, especially. You just had to spam them the entire dungeon, and
Yeah.
it wasn't fun. Like that's not fun for the healer either, or for the tank. So yeah, especially like if they're pressing cooldowns, they shouldn't need us to just like spam them the entire time. So I kind of like where they've gotten in Dragonflight so far.
Cool. All
Yeah,
right.
same here.
So both of you have done some raid testing, have healed on multiple classes. How do you think the raid fights are looking, Jack?
I
For
think
healers
so
testing.
far the damage is, this is something that happens every PTR test where the damage is low because they want you to see more mechanics. But what they're doing is very specifically changing our health pools and changing the damage, of course, to compensate. But we don't see that actually in testing. So it's very difficult to get a good idea of like, is healing going to be fun? Because as they usually do, normal and heroic don't really have a lot of damage. I've done all that stuff, and it's all like 50-60% overheal by the healers, which again isn't unheard of, but it's just so difficult to have an idea of what we're going to face. Back in Sanctum of Domination, almost every mythic fight was just like that, just like there's no damage, except for like Guardian of the First Ones, which was the patchwork fight, more or less. And that fight, when it came out, we're like, oh my God, we had like 6 or 7 healers that we had for
Yeah.
testing just to like see further in the fight. And that was great to look at which healers could actually blast and like how healers would deal with the damage. Because there is a lot of absorbs, there's a lot of rot, there's stuff that is in there that looks like it should be good for the healing meta, but we don't really know.
Yeah. Then any other thoughts on that?
Yeah, kind of like Jack said, it's really hard to tell with heroic testing, just because nothing does that much damage. The one fight that was kind of fun to heal was Smolderon.
Yeah.
But I think the feedback that I would give on that one, so there's like ticking damage that does, I think it's like 50k damage every 3 seconds on Mythic. Um, Again, with a 900,000 health pool, a single healer could probably heal that damage, right? So, but there's also these really big bursts of damage, and that's the thing that we just got. Like we just gave feedback on in season 2. Like, hey, Rashok has like these huge bursts of damage, and then there's nothing for 30 seconds, and
Mhm.
that's what I'm afraid of for like a fight like Smolderon. So, if I were to like give some feedback on that, it'd be maybe increasing that dot damage by quite a bit and then lowering the amount of burst damage that happens. But um, yeah, probably gonna have to wait for mythic testing to really get a feel for what it feels like.
Did you see that Volcaros has ticking damage too? Did you know that?
Yeah, there. I didn't even like notice it in testing
Yeah.
because we had like 70% overhealing, I think, in our group. But yeah, ticking damage is fine to add for fights. I don't know if they just don't realize that our health pools are so massive right now, but 24k ticking damage every few seconds is nothing. So
Yeah, I saw the boss had a buff, and I was like, "Oh, what's the buff that he has?" And it's ticking damage. I was like, "I didn't even realize there was rot damage on this fight when we tested it because
yeah,
you
yep.
just couldn't notice." Yeah,
That was the
I mean
worm,
the
right?
tools are in place. What's that?
That was the worm.
Yeah, that was the big
Correct,
worm
yeah.
dude
Yeah.
with the tail slam. But I mean, this isn't unheard of because in BFA we had a similar circumstance with a lot of end bosses being really bursty in nature, like Gahoon and Jaina having like a lot of like burst moments until you would end up getting into the rot at the end of the fight. Like both those fights had a lot of rot at the end, but early on it was like nothing. So what they did on Nazoth is they like quadrupled the ticking damage on that fight from PTR to live. We remember seeing like the Wowhead post about the updates, and they just like quadruple or quintuple the amount of damage. But then the entire fight, you're just blasting healing all the time. So I'm hoping that they do that to a couple different boss fights because that was a very fun fight to heal.
I think
Yeah, I agree.
previously rot damage was used to counter the stack AM and barrier metas that was occurring.
Yes.
Um, and then they kind of solved that with healing absorbs, but now I guess these days it's used sparingly almost. They definitely pulled it back a bit. But
Yeah, it was. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No.
Uh, BFA was also a good example because healers got really powerful as you got essences and corruption and azurite and all that stuff. But what they specifically did is they like kept it in mind as they gave you more power by giving you those stamina nodes throughout the expansion. They like doubled the amount of stamina you got from azurite armor going into battle for Dazar'alor. They did a lot of that stuff to like prepare for this, and they haven't really been prepared for it in Dragonflight because they gave you too much strength to top off health pools quickly, and now they're just trying to play like catch up. So we're in like the upside down land for healers, where we
Yeah.
get almost like weaker in being able to top off health pools as the expansion goes on because we need to slow healing down so that it's not so crazy bursty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, in both your videos that you did previously, you did mention the very bursty nature. Like, if you had to guess on what this upcoming raid tier is looking like, you know, do you see it being as bursty, or do you think they've started to calm things down a bit?
It's a little hard to say. I mean, there's a lot of fights that you just couldn't even tell on heroic testing.
Yeah.
But yeah, Smolderon definitely felt bursty. Uh, I could see the one we haven't tested yet on heroic. Starts with an
Uh,
L, I believe.
Laradar.
Yeah, that one seems like it could have like some pretty good burst damage. Seems like it's probably been dialed back a bit from what we had in season 2, but like I hope that's like at the top of their like list of things to keep an eye on for just like going into season 3. So
Yeah, I hope so too. And that's the thing is like it's tough to be able to give good healer feedback to them if they don't scale the damage high enough for us to say, hey, you should reduce that burst damage, but increase the rot damage or something along those lines. Like
yeah,
that's
exactly.
why I really want to have at least a couple of these fights when we go into Mythic, since it hasn't happened yet, of like just slam damage so we have to bring 6 or 7 healers for a 20 man. Like overdo it so we can get a good barometer of like what's too much, what's too little, what's our eye level gonna be, all that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. The last question I have for raid is we've had a distinct lack of 5 healer or even 3 healer fights this expansion. Do you like this? Do you think that this will change kind of the raid healing meta, or like how bursty things can be, or do you think it's just a solid 4 is really nice?
You
I would
first, Tim.
love, yeah, I would love for 5 healers to come back. It doesn't have to be on every fight, but I think some of the best fights that have happened have been fights where you have wanted or you've brought 5 healers, you've wanted even a 6th healer, but you can't because of damage restraints, or vice versa. You really want a 4th healer, but just to meet the damage check, you have to play 3. Um, if you're just playing 4 healers in every single fight, and you're not challenged, that's not super fun. So I'd like to see just at least some variety, especially for the guilds. I know a lot of guilds have like 5 healers on the roster generally, so just even just for that purpose alone, it'd be nice to change things up a bit.
Yeah, 100%. And if we're also exploding in like eye level and stats and all of that other fun stuff, I feel like it's even more important to be in that position where you need to have lots and lots of healers. And then as you get stronger, you can kind of scale down a little bit. So I would hope for that. Honestly, it feels like it's really been a while since we've had more like time and attention sort of given to healers there. So I hope for 5 heal fights. I really do.
Okay. Anything else? That last comments for raid stuff. All
I
right.
don't think so. No.
Buff
So
this priest.
I won't say it this time. I won't say it.
Yeah, say it through
But gotta
there.
buff Resto Shaman, man.
Yeah, there we go.
All right, so Mythic Plus. I know many healers have been frustrated by the state of Mythic Plus in Season 2 and how weak healing can feel. Mythic Plus testing just got started recently on the PTR as well. How does healing currently feel in Mythic Plus keys so far? Dane, you want to start us off?
Yeah, so I've only done 2 Mythic Plus since testing. And I've done it on Resto Shaman and Disc Priest, but both of them felt, I think, like okay. On I think we were doing like 22s or something. So the buffs to single target healing is definitely like noticeable. You can definitely tell that you can top health bars a little bit faster than on live. But there is still like quite a bit of burst damage, or like Jack said earlier, and you mentioned, is like it feels like you're in a glass cannon environment. So because the pulls are getting over with really quickly on the PTR, then it doesn't feel so bad. I'm worried if you get to like really high keys, really high fortified keys, that some of these dungeons are going to feel pretty brutal later on. So hopefully that's something that they're keeping their eye on. But
Yeah. Nerf DPS players by increasing the health of the enemies so that it's harder to be able to kill them and it scales a little bit better. So that, yeah, we're not like worried about getting one shot on every single boss fight or, you know, every single bolt cast that goes off in the dungeon so far. The spell profiles are also kind of nasty. Like Darkheart Thicket, the amount of poisons that go off in that dungeon are really, really nuts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and just for context, the keys right now, since we didn't actually discuss it here while recording, mobs just die really quick, but so do you. So,
Yeah.
it feels like the amount of damage that mobs are doing is outscaling the amount of health that they have, and that's kind of where this discussion is coming from. But yeah, I mean, it's glad to feel that the spot healing changes are good, because I think that was definitely a lot of the frustration when somebody gets bolted for, 80% of their health on Sky Captain Crag. You're just like, I have 1 second to top this guy off before he dies.
And he
Yeah.
can target you again, too.
Yeah.
And again, and again, and again. I had this happen on my priest.
Yeah, you're just like,
I don't know. Is that like a thing that happens this season? And if it is, if there's a Sky Captain Crag where you can get targeted over and over again, I really hope that that's at least just target someone else,
Yeah.
But that was something that felt really bad last season on Squishy Healer.
yeah.
Not that I remember from any of the dungeons I've done thus far. I don't think
Okay,
there's
yeah,
any of
I
those
didn't
kind
think
of
so.
mechanics. It might be like the Racking Bolt or whatever that Lord and Lady Waycrest do, because she has those casts that you cannot stop when she's
Right.
playing the organ. And then they can just like bombard somebody randomly. So it might be like that.
Okay.
There's also just like random bolts where like if 3 of the caster mobs just happen to randomly target the same person, you just get exploded. You're just like, okay, thanks.
Like Melt in
Neltharis.
Neltharis.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, overall, I mean, Mythic Plus right now, do you think healers will be happier with the current state of things? Do you think and we'll go. Do you think healers will be happier? Is it more fun to play?
I hope so. But like that's the biggest thing is I'm not at 476 eye level with this massively increased health pool and able to see what the damage is looking like. It looks like they're setting the groundwork and they're doing stuff, which is great. But it's tough to like have a really good idea of how something feels when you can't interact with it. You know, I don't really know why we're at 440 item level testing Mythic Plus dungeons. Before that it was at 450 or something, and that doesn't make any sense either. Why are we at like normal raid gear testing this stuff? People are going to spam into like heroic-ish raid eye level and then be doing a lot of their dungeons. Like that's where everybody's interacting with the content at. And so we should be at that level too if we're going to give good feedback and understanding of how healing actually feels.
Yeah, definitely. Actually, there is one big single target healing check that I remember now. The last boss of Blackrock Hold, the Swarm. Whoever gets that swarm, it still hurts like heck.
Shamans will die. Shamans will die.
Yeah.
So that is definitely one where you'd like the swarm goes on. They need to get into melee immediately to get it killed. Meanwhile, you just have to spam bomb heals into them, and like
it can target the healer though, and you can't get a cast off.
Oh, I didn't know that.
You cannot cast
Yeah,
healing
it's not
spells.
fun. I didn't like that fight. I hated it.
You have Riptide, and you drop Slink, and you pray. And
But yeah, there might be still some, but obviously Mythic Plus is really new on the PTR, and I'm sure that tuning will come. But there's definitely just a lot of people just blow up right now. 5 swords jump on you, and you just die. Or Juggernaut charges you, and you die. Healing changes aren't going to fix that. So it's like you said with the raid stuff, it's sometimes a little hard to tell, I think.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I think so far they're making the changes like they, I think, should. I think it's much better than them doing nothing. I think these are like the right changes they should be. It's just you don't really know if they need to work on the execution more, or polish it more, because we just don't have the opportunity to play with it, get an idea.
Yeah, it's theoretically that should be a good change. Find out more in 3 months,
Yeah.
So
optimistic.
Yeah,
I am.
I think it could be a good thing. So we'll see.
Yep, I am liquid hopeful.
All right. That's about everything that we had for Mythic Plus, I think. Any final comments before we wrap this up?
Buff
Sounds
disc.
like so. Yeah, I don't
Actually,
think
buff Holy as well, man. Holy Priest tier set's down tremendous. All right, love to the Holy Priest. They need some.
All right. Well, thank you, Jack. Thank you, Theun, and we will see you guys next time. Bye bye.
Thanks so much.
See ya.